January 3rd, 2026, a date that will be etched into the veins of Latin American history forever. As the world slept, the tropical, humid air of Caracas was shattered by the rhythmic thunder of rotors. Black Hawk helicopters, shadows against a moonlit sky, descended upon the presidential palace. For over a decade, this man was the untouchable face of the Bolivarian Revolution. A former bus driver who held a nation and the world's largest oil reserves in a fist of iron. But tonight, the iron rusted. Nicolás Maduro, to some the loyal heir to Hugo Chávez and a defender of the poor against imperialist Goliaths. To others, a ruthless dictator who presided over the greatest economic suicide of the 21st century. Today, the palace is quiet. The red berets are gone, and as the dawn breaks over the Caribbean, a nation wakes up to a reality it hasn't known in 13 years, a Venezuela without Maduro. But how did we get here? How did a man who once navigated the crowded streets of Caracas as a humble bus driver become the captain of a sinking ship, refuse to leave even as the water reached the deck? How did a land of golden oil become a land of silver hunger? This is not just a story of politics. This is a story of greed, ghost towns, and a revolution that devoured its own children. This is the chronicle of the rise and the dramatic fall of Nicolás Maduro. To understand the end, we must go back to the beginning. Before the sanctions, before the hyperinflation, before the world's most powerful military came knocking at his door. We must travel back to the shadow of a giant, the man who started it all, El Comandante, Hugo Chávez. Every titan has a humble origin. For Nicolás Maduro Moros, born in November 1962, the journey didn't begin in a gilded palace, but in the gritty working-class neighborhood of El Valle. His father, a fierce union leader, planted the seeds of revolution in him early on. But Nicolás was not a typical student. He didn't dream of law degrees or corporate boardrooms. Instead, he found his voice in the streets, playing rock music and organizing student protests. He never graduated from high school. Instead, he took the wheel of a bus for the Caracas Metro. Behind that wheel, he wasn't just transporting passengers, he was building a movement. He founded the first unofficial union for transit workers, a move that marked him as a target for the authorities and a hero to his peers. The turning point, 1992. A charismatic tank commander named Hugo Chávez attempted a coup that would change Venezuela forever. The coup failed, and Chávez was thrown behind bars. It was here that Maduro's destiny fused with the revolution. Along with his future wife, the brilliant lawyer Celia Flores, Maduro campaigned tirelessly for Chávez's release. He wasn't just a supporter, he was his shadow. When Chávez was finally released in 1994, Maduro was there. When Chávez ran for the presidency in 1998 on a wave of populist hope, Maduro was his bodyguard, his confidant, and his most loyal soldier. To the world, he was just the driver, but to Chávez, he was the son of the revolution. By 2012, the giant was falling. Hugo Chávez was dying of cancer. In his final televised address, with a trembling hand and a weary heart, Chávez made a plea to his followers. "If something happens to me," he said, "vote for Nicolás Maduro." On March 5, 2013, the silence of death fell over Venezuela. Chávez was gone. The weight of an entire nation and the legacy of the Bolivarian Revolution fell onto the shoulders of the former bus driver. Maduro won the special election by a razor-thin margin, but the honeymoon was over before it began. He didn't just inherit a presidency, he inherited a time bomb. The oil curse. For years, the revolution was fueled by high oil prices, but shortly after Maduro took office, the global oil market crashed. The money that funded the social programs, the misiones that kept the poor loyal, vanished overnight. the transformation. Without the charisma of Chávez and without the money of the oil boom, Maduro chose a different path to survival: iron. The protests began in 2014. Students, workers, and the middle class took to the streets, crying for bread and freedom. Maduro's response was not dialogue, but fire. This was the moment the conciliatory union leader died, and the dictator of despair was born. He realized that to stay in power, he didn't need the love of the people, he only needed the loyalty of the generals. Imagine a world where your life savings can't buy a loaf of bread, where a stack of cash is worth less than the rubber band holding it together. This wasn't a dystopian movie, this was Maduro's Venezuela. By 2016, the Bolivarian Dream had become a waking nightmare. As oil prices plummeted, Maduro made a fatal decision. He printed money. Trillions of bolivars flooded the streets, and as they did, their value evaporated like mist in the Caribbean sun. The statistics of sorrow. Inflation hit a staggering, mind-bending 1,000,000%. People began to weigh money instead of counting it. In the markets of Caracas, a chicken cost more than a month's minimum wage. This was the era of the Maduro diet. The average Venezuelan lost 24 pounds in a single year, not by choice, but by starvation. While the elite, the enchufados, sipped champagne in guarded mansions, the children of the revolution were fainting in schools from hunger. But Maduro remained defiant. On national television, he danced, he joked, he blamed Yankee imperialism and economic sabotage for every empty stomach. It was a masterclass in gaslighting a nation. To maintain control, he introduced the Carnet de la Patria, a digital ID card. No card, no food rations. In Maduro's Venezuela, loyalty was the only currency that could buy a meal. As the people starved, the world turned its back. But Maduro was not alone. He turned the country into a geopolitical fortress.